My daughter looked me straight in the eye and said the one sentence that destroyed me. "Dad, you're redundant." That's how it began. That single line, spat out with teenage venom, sliced through my chest, deeper than any knife could. You hear stories about betrayal in marriage, about partners straying, about love dying. But nothing prepares you for the day your own child, the one you carried on your shoulders, the one whose nightmares you calmed, whose scraped knees you bandaged, turns around and says you don't matter anymore. And she didn't say it because she was rebellious or angry or misunderstood. She said it because she had already chosen sides. My daughter had chosen her cheating mother over me. I should probably introduce myself before I lose you in the storm. I'm David, 41 years old. I've spent the last 2 decades working in construction management, putting in long days and longer nights to provide the kind of life my wife always said she dreamed of. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had a modest 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood, a decent car, a golden retriever that my daughter adored. On the surface, it looked like the American dream. A hard-working husband, a devoted wife, a bright daughter. But beneath that surface, rot had been growing, and I was too blind, too trusting, or maybe too exhausted to see it in time. My wife, Clara, was everything people said they envied. Beautiful, charming, quick with a laugh that could disarm the coldest room. She had this way of making people feel seen, special, like they were the center of her universe. I fell for it. Hell, I built my entire life around that illusion. And for years, I thought she was my partner in everything: marriage, parenting, building a future. But now, when I look back, I can see the cracks that were always there, waiting for the right moment to split wide open. And then there was Emma, my daughter, 16 years old, the light of my life, or at least she was. You have to understand, I adored her. Every choice I made, every extra shift I picked up, every time I swallowed my pride and bit back my words, when I wanted to scream, I did it because of her. I wanted her to have stability, security, the sense that her father was someone she could count on no matter what. So when she chose her mother, it wasn't just betrayal, it was obliteration. It was the universe mocking me, saying, "You gave everything, and in the end, you were nothing." But let me not get ahead of myself. I need to take you back, before the word redundant shattered me, to when I first began to notice that something was wrong. At first, it was little things, details you dismiss because love blinds you. Clara started going to bed later than me. She claimed she was binge-watching shows I didn't care for, or catching up with old friends online. I didn't question it. I was too tired most nights to think twice. Then her phone, once left casually on the counter or coffee table, was suddenly glued to her hand. Face down, locked, always within reach. I asked once, jokingly, "Who are you texting so much?" She laughed and brushed it off. "Mom's group chat, you wouldn't survive 5 minutes in it." I wanted to believe her. God help me, I wanted to. Emma, too, had started acting differently around me. Distant. Not just the normal teenage withdrawal. This was sharper, more pointed. When I asked her about her day, she gave me clipped answers. When I tried to connect, she pulled away. And when I insisted, she ran straight to Clara, like I was the intruder in my own family. I told myself it was just a phase, that teenagers are like that mothers and daughters have bonds fathers can't always compete with. But there was a heaviness in her tone sometimes,
a rehearsed edge, like someone else's words were already in her mouth before she spoke them. The turning point came one night when I came home early from work. I had finished a job ahead of schedule, something rare enough that I thought I'd surprise them with takeout. I opened the door and heard voices. Clara's hushed tone, Emma's sharper one. I stayed in the hallway, half hidden, listening. And what I heard made the hairs on my neck stand up. "Don't tell him," Clara whispered. "He doesn't need to know. It'll only make things worse." Emma's voice was firmer, more defiant. "He'll find out eventually. Maybe he should. He's not stupid." I froze. My wife and daughter, conspiring in whispers, voices carrying secrets that didn't include me. My stomach dropped, and I felt this wave of nausea, like the floor had been ripped from under me. I pushed open the door, too quickly, too loudly. They both jumped, eyes wide, expressions guilty. Clara smiled, a thin, nervous smile, but Emma glared at me like I was the one intruding. "What don't I need to know?" I asked. Silence. Just silence. Clara muttered something about school drama and don't worry about it, but her eyes betrayed her. Emma crossed her arms, her lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. And that's when she said it. The sentence that would replay in my head like a curse. "Dad, you're redundant." The room went dead quiet after that. My ears rang, my chest tightened, and I swear I could feel something inside me snapping. I laughed. I actually laughed, this bitter, broken sound I didn't even recognize. Because what else could I do? My wife avoided my gaze. My daughter dismissed me like I was nothing. And suddenly, maybe I was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last few years. Every sacrifice, every compromise, every time I put my needs last because I thought I was doing it for them. And the more I thought, the clearer it became. Something was rotten, and I was the fool too blind to see it in time. And then, just as I was drifting toward that restless half-sleep, my phone buzzed. One message from a number I didn't recognize. A single line that made my blood run cold. "Your wife isn't loyal. Check her phone." The message glowed on my screen like a curse. "Your wife isn't loyal. Check her phone." 10 words, and my world tilted. I lay there in the dark, staring at those letters, my mind racing in circles. Who sent it? How did they know? Was it some cruel joke, or was it the truth I had been too cowardly to face? I didn't move for a long time. My heart was hammering, my palms sweaty, and yet I couldn't bring myself to reach over to Clara's nightstand and pick up her phone. She was asleep beside me, her breathing steady, almost too steady. I wondered if she was faking it, pretending to be in dreams while hiding a nightmare.
I didn't check that night. Maybe I was afraid of confirming what I already knew in my gut. But once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. That message planted a seed in my head, and it grew like poison ivy, wrapping around every thought, every interaction, every glance. The next morning, Clara was cheerful, too cheerful. She hummed as she made coffee, kissed Emma on the forehead, asked about her homework. But when she looked at me, her smile faltered, just for a second, and then she covered it with a laugh. "Rough night?" she asked, as if she didn't notice the storm brewing in my chest. I studied her, really studied her, and I saw things I had ignored before. The way she kept her phone screen angled away from me, the way she jumped at every notification, laughing softly to herself like a schoolgirl in love. The late nights, the sudden errands,
The new lingerie I had never seen her wear for me. I thought of Emma's coldness, her sharp words, the whispered conversation I had overheard, and I felt my stomach turn. I tried to brush it off, to pretend I was imagining things. I told myself, don't be paranoid. Don't let a stranger's message destroy your family. But doubt is a cancer. Once it's inside you, it spreads. That week, Clara started coming home later. She claimed she was helping a friend with a project or meeting coworkers for drinks. Normally, I would have accepted it, but now every excuse sounded hollow. One night, I called her around 9. She answered quickly, too quickly, her voice breathless. "Hey, can I call you back? It's really loud here." And then, clack, just like that, she was gone. I sat in the living room, staring at the darkened TV screen, my reflection looking back at me. Was I losing my mind? Or was I finally seeing the truth? Emma didn't help matters. She became colder by the day. When I tried to talk to her, she rolled her eyes. When I asked if she wanted to hang out, she scoffed. "Why don't you just go back to work, Dad? That's what you're good at." Those words stung worse than I can describe. I wanted to shout, to demand respect, but I bit my tongue. Because deep down, I wondered if Clara had already poisoned her against me, whispered lies until my daughter saw me not as a father, but as an obstacle. One evening, while Clara was in the shower, I finally did it. My hands shook as I reached for her phone. The lock screen was different. She had changed her passcode. My heart sank. In all our years together, Clara had never locked me out. Now, suddenly, her world was sealed. I put the phone back before she could catch me. But the doubt wasn't just in my head anymore. It was real, tangible, undeniable. I started noticing other things. Receipts in her purse from restaurants I had never been to. A hotel loyalty card tucked in her wallet, though we hadn't stayed in a hotel in years. Perfume lingering on her skin that I hadn't bought for her. Each discovery was like a needle in my chest, small but lethal. I told myself I needed proof before I confronted her. Without proof, she'd laugh it off, flip it back on me, call me insecure, paranoid. And maybe Emma would side with her again, sneer at me like I was pathetic. No, I needed evidence, something undeniable. So I began watching. Quietly, carefully. When Clara said she was meeting friends, I noted the time. When she claimed she was shopping, I checked her bags. I even went so far as to check her car's mileage one night, writing it down like some obsessed detective. And every detail, every inconsistency, was another stone on my chest, crushing me. But doubt isn't just about what you see, it's about what you feel. And I felt it, in the silence between us, in the way she pulled away when I reached for her hand, in the way her laughter sounded hollow when she was with me, but genuine when she was staring at her phone. One night, as I sat at the kitchen table, my head in my hands, Emma walked in. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't even pretend to care. She just looked at me with this cold disdain that didn't belong in a child's eyes. And then she said, "Why can't you just let Mom be happy?" The words hit me like a hammer. Let her be happy? Happy with what? With who? Emma knew something. I could see it in her eyes. She was holding secrets for her mother, keeping me in the dark, treating me like the outsider in my own home. That night, I couldn't hold back anymore. I searched Clara's purse, her drawers, every corner of the house. And in the bottom of her handbag, I found it. A folded receipt from a hotel. A room booked for 2. Dated just last week. I stared at it until the numbers blurred. My hands were shaking, my vision swimming. There it was. Not hearsay, not suspicion. Proof. Clara was cheating. My wife, the woman I had sacrificed for, was giving herself to someone else. And worse, my daughter knew. She had chosen her mother, chosen the lies, chosen betrayal. I sat there in the dark, clutching that piece of paper, my chest heaving. I thought I had reached rock bottom. I thought nothing could cut deeper than hearing my daughter call me redundant. But I was wrong, because the receipt had a name, and it was someone I knew. The name on that hotel receipt burned itself into my mind like fire. It wasn't some stranger. It wasn't a faceless man. It was someone I knew, someone close. It was Mark, my coworker, my so-called friend. I stared at the paper until my vision blurred, bile rising in my throat. Mark, the man who had sat at our dinner table, toasted with me on my birthday, laughed with Emma as though he were her uncle. Mark, who had slapped me on the back at work and called me brother. My wife was sleeping with him. And the worst part? My daughter seemed to know. I didn't confront Clara right away. I couldn't. The fury boiling inside me wasn't ready to spill, not yet. I needed to be sure, to see it with my own eyes. Because if I confronted her without proof beyond paper, she'd deny it, gaslight me, make me feel insane. And maybe Emma would side with her again, glare at me with those cold eyes and call me pathetic. No, I couldn't risk that. But sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. Clara's smile, the one she hadn't given me in months, lighting up for him. Her body pressed against his. My so-called friend whispering in her ear the way I used to.
I tossed, turned, drank too much just to shut my brain off, but nothing worked. Days became torture. Clara floated through the house with an energy I didn't recognize. She hummed, she smiled at her phone, she left in the evenings and returned smelling of cologne that wasn't mine. And Emma looked at me like I was already a ghost, unnecessary, outdated. I tried to test her, to ask subtle questions. One night at dinner, I said, "So, how's work? Any new projects?" She barely looked up from her plate. "The usual," she muttered. I pressed, "You're gone late a lot these days. Everything okay?" Her fork clattered against the dish, and her eyes narrowed. "Why are you interrogating me?" she snapped. "Do you think I'm lying to you?" Her tone was sharp, defensive, the exact reaction of someone hiding the truth. I wanted to slam my fist on the table, to throw the receipt in her face, to scream, "Yes, I think you're lying. I know you're lying." But I didn't. I swallowed the rage, let it fester in my gut. Later that night, I tried again, softer this time. She was brushing her hair by the mirror, and I asked, "Do you still love me, Clara?" She froze, her brush halfway through a strand of hair. She didn't turn to look at me when she said, "Why would you ask something like that?" Her voice was cold, flat. Then she set the brush down and left the room without another word. That answer told me everything I needed to know. Emma wasn't any better. She treated me like an outsider in my own home, whispering with her mother, glaring at me when I walked into the room. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. She said,
Dad's being weird lately. I just wish he'd stop trying. Mom's happier now. He doesn't get it. Happier now. Happier with another man. Happier while tearing our family apart. And my own daughter was fine with it. No more than fine. She was defending it. That was the moment something inside me cracked. The next day, I followed Clara. She said she was going grocery shopping. I waited a few minutes, then got in my car and tailed her. My hands were slick with sweat, my heart pounding as I kept my distance. She didn't go to the grocery store. She drove across town to a hotel. My stomach turned to stone. I watched as she parked, fixed her hair in the mirror, and walked inside. Minutes later, Mark appeared, his hand brushing hers as they disappeared through the sliding doors together. It felt like a knife had been driven straight into my chest. Proof. There it was. The nightmare I had dreaded unfolding in front of my eyes. I wanted to storm inside, drag them both out by their hair, scream until the whole city heard. But I didn't. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, tears burning down my cheeks. Because in that moment, I realized something worse than betrayal. They weren't ashamed. They weren't hiding in the shadows. They walked into that hotel like they owned the world, like my marriage, my family, meant nothing. I went home before they returned. I couldn't bear to see them walk in, pretending nothing happened. When Clara came back hours later, she smiled faintly, kissed Emma on the head, and brushed past me as if I didn't exist. That night, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I cornered her in the kitchen. "Where were you tonight?" I asked, my voice trembling. She froze, then shrugged. "I told you, grocery store." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I followed you. I saw you." Her eyes widened, just for a second, then hardened like steel. "You're spying on me now?" she hissed. "Do you know how pathetic that is?" "Pathetic?" I laughed bitterly, my chest aching. "Pathetic is sneaking around with my coworker, Clara. Pathetic is dragging our daughter into your lies." Her face flushed with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I roared, slamming the receipt down on the counter. "I have proof. I know everything." Emma ran in then, eyes wide. "What's going on?" Clara turned to her, her voice breaking. "Your father's accusing me of things that aren't true." And just like that, my daughter stepped between us, glaring at me with pure hatred. "Leave Mom alone. She doesn't deserve this. You're the problem, Dad. You always have been." The words hit me harder than any fist. My knees nearly buckled. I had expected anger, denial, maybe even tears. But betrayal from my own child? That I hadn't prepared for. I looked at Clara, then at Emma, and I saw it in their eyes. I was no longer part of their family. I was the intruder, the villain in their story. That night, I made a decision. If they wanted to treat me like I was redundant, then I would show them what life without me really looked like. The silence in the house after Emma's words was unbearable. I stood there, staring at my daughter as though I didn't recognize her anymore. My chest rose and fell, like I had just run miles, but I hadn't moved. "You think I'm the problem?" I whispered, my voice raw. Emma crossed her arms, chin jutting out, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. "You're paranoid. You make up things that aren't true. You're ruining everything." Clara's hand landed gently on her shoulder, the perfect picture of a protective mother. She whispered something to Emma, then turned her eyes back to me. Eyes full of ice. "This ends now," she said. "You're not going to tear this family apart because of your insecurities." My insecurities. That's what she called it? Not betrayal, not adultery, not the fact that she had paraded my own coworker into our lives like I was blind and deaf. No, she called it my problem. I felt the walls closing in on me. The family I had built, the life I had fought for, was dissolving in front of my eyes, and they didn't even care. The next day, I walked into the office and saw Mark. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't destroyed everything I loved. That smug grin nearly sent me over the edge. I clenched my fists so tightly, my nails dug into my palms. "Morning," he said casually. My vision tunneled, my hand twitched. For a split second, I imagined smashing his face against the desk, breaking every bone until he confessed, until the whole world knew what he had done. But I didn't. I forced a nod, my jaw locked so tight it ached. The rage had to wait. Not here. Not yet. That night, Clara left again. I didn't bother asking where. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Emma as she scrolled through her phone. "Do you hate me now?" I asked suddenly. She looked up, startled. "What? Do you hate me?" I repeated, louder this time.
Because that's how it feels. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't answer. "Emma, I'm your father," I said, my voice breaking. "I've been here your whole life. I've sacrificed everything for you. Don't I deserve your loyalty, even a little?" Her eyes flickered with something, hesitation, maybe guilt, but then she hardened again, just like her mother. "Mom deserves to be happy," she muttered. "And I shot back." The words hung in the air like poison. She turned away, refusing to meet my eyes, and my heart cracked in two. By the weekend, the whispers had begun. Neighbors looked at me differently, their smiles thin and forced. At the grocery store, two women in the next aisle spoke just a little too loudly. "Did you hear? Clara's been spending time with someone not her husband." My stomach twisted. Clara hadn't even bothered to hide it anymore. She had made me a fool, not just at home, but in the eyes of everyone around us. That night, when she came home, I snapped. "You think I don't hear the whispers?" I shouted as soon as she walked in. Emma rushed to her side instantly, as though protecting her from a monster. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone. Our neighbors, our friends, even my coworkers know. Do you have any shame left, Clara?" She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with that same cold calm that drove me insane. "Maybe if you'd been the husband I needed," she said, "I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." The words hit like a bullet. Emma gasped, but Clara didn't take them back. She meant them. She wanted me to hear them, to bleed from them. I slammed my fist on the table so hard the dishes rattled. "You destroyed this marriage, Clara. Don't you dare put this on me." Emma screamed, "Stop it! Stop yelling at her!" and shoved me back with all her strength. My own daughter pushed me, defended the woman who had betrayed me, and glared at me like I was a stranger. The rage inside me was uncontrollable. My vision blurred, my ears rang. I stormed out of the house, the door slamming so hard the walls shook. I walked for hours, aimlessly, through empty streets. My thoughts spiraled darker with every step. What was left for me here? A wife who despised me, a daughter who hated me,
a reputation in ruins. But then, through the haze of anger and despair, another thought surfaced. Revenge. Not petty anger, not shouting matches in the kitchen. Real revenge. Something they would never forget. Because if they wanted me to be the villain, then maybe it was time I played the part. It happened on a Thursday night, a night that burned itself into my memory like fire searing flesh. Clara said she was working late. I didn't argue this time. I didn't want another screaming match in front of Emma. But inside, I was boiling. My chest ached from weeks of betrayal. My mind gnawed at every lie she had told, every smile she had shared with him. So I followed her. The city was quiet, its streets dimly lit, but my heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Her car led me out of town, down darker roads, until it stopped at a hotel I knew too well. Not a 5-star resort, just a mid-range place where people went to disappear. I waited, hands trembling on the steering wheel, as she got out of the car. She looked radiant, hair done, makeup perfect, wearing the dress I once told her was my favorite. She walked into that hotel with a smile, the same smile she used to give me, and I felt my stomach twist. Minutes later, Mark arrived. He was casual, smug as always. They didn't kiss in the open, but the way they looked at each other was worse. Hunger in their eyes. Secret they no longer cared to hide. I took photos. Hands shaking, breath ragged, I snapped picture after picture until I thought my phone would crack under the weight of them. Proof. Hard, undeniable proof. But proof wasn't enough. Not anymore. I followed them inside. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and faded perfume. My footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate, as I approached the door they had disappeared behind. My hands burned with rage, my throat dry, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I didn't knock. I didn't hesitate. I kicked the door open. The room froze in a tableau of shame. Clara half undressed, Mark scrambling like a cornered rat, their eyes wide with horror as I stood there, the fury of years pouring out of me. "You think I'm blind?" I roared, my voice shaking the walls. "You think I'm a fool?" Clara stammered, "It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like?" I hurled my phone at the bed, photos glowing on the screen. "It's exactly what it looks like." Mark tried to step forward, his hands raised. "Come down, man. Listen." I lunged at him, fists flying. The first punch cracked his lip, sent him reeling against the wall. My hands wouldn't stop. Every ounce of rage, humiliation, and betrayal poured into my blows. Years of trust shattered with each strike. Clara screamed, clawing at my arms, pulling me back. "Stop! You'll kill him!" I wrenched free, panting, trembling, standing at the pathetic man cowering before me. Blood stained his shirt, fear in his eyes. For once, he didn't look so smug. But the worst part wasn't him. It was her. Clara didn't rush to me, didn't beg for forgiveness. She shielded him, protected him, looked at me like I was the monster. The betrayal was complete. "After everything I gave you," I spat, my voice raw, "this is how you repay me? You throw me away like garbage, and you bring him into my bed, into my family?" Tears streaked her face, but her words cut deeper than any knife. "I don't love you anymore." The silence after that sentence was deafening. My knees merely buckled, my chest caved in. I thought I knew pain before, but nothing prepared me for that. I stumbled back, gasping for air. My whole world spun. And then, behind me, I heard a voice. "Dad?" Emma stood at the door. She had followed me. Her wide eyes took in the scene. Her mother's tears, Mark's bloodied face, my fists still trembling, the broken pieces of our family scattered across the hotel room floor. "Emma," I whispered, reaching out. But she didn't move toward me. She ran to her mother. She clung to Clara, shielding her just as Clara had shielded Mark. Her eyes blazed with fury as she screamed, "Leave us alone! You're destroying everything!" The words hit harder than any punch. My own daughter, my flesh and blood, siding with the woman who betrayed me and the man who ruined my life. I staggered back, numb, hollow. Everything I had lived for, gone in that moment. Wife, daughter, dignity.
Respect, all torn away. But then Clara, shaking, broken, still managed to twist the knife. "She knows, you know," she said softly. I frowned, my head spinning. Knows what? Clara's lips curled into something between a sob and a sneer. "She knows Mark isn't just my lover. He's her real father." The ground collapsed beneath me. My vision went black around the edges. Emma's gasp confirmed it wasn't a lie. She had known. She had chosen him over me. Because in her heart, in her blood, she had never truly been mine. I staggered backward into the hallway, my chest tight, my hands clawing at the walls for balance. The world I thought I lived in no longer existed. My life had been a lie, my role a cruel joke. And as the door slammed shut behind me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was done. Done being a fool. Done being their scapegoat. Done being redundant. If they wanted to destroy me, I would let them. But I would not go quietly. I would leave them to drown in the chaos they created. And maybe I would help push them under. The days after that night felt like walking through the ashes of my own funeral. My body was alive, but inside, I was already buried. I had no wife, no daughter, no family left to hold on to. But I wasn't broken, not anymore. The grief burned away, leaving only a cold, sharp edge. And with that edge, I began cutting away everything that had chained me to their lies. First came Clara. She called me, begged me, demanded to meet. I didn't answer. The woman who once controlled my world now screamed into a void, her words bouncing off the walls of silence I built around myself. When she showed up at the house, I didn't yell, didn't cry. I opened the door, looked her in the eyes, and handed her divorce papers. Her face drained of color. "You can't be serious." "I was serious about us," I said, my voice flat, controlled. "You buried that when you opened your legs for him." She tried to argue, begged for another chance, said Emma needed her mother and father together. But her words rang hollow. Emma had already chosen her side. Clara had already chosen hers. There was nothing left to salvage. Next was Mark. He avoided me, of course, but in a town like ours, you can't hide forever. I made sure everyone knew. The photos, the truth. I didn't scream it from rooftops. I simply let the evidence slip into the right hands. Neighbors, coworkers, family friends. One by one, they saw what he had done. The whispers spread like wildfire. His reputation blackened overnight. The smug charm he once wore turned into a mask of shame. His colleagues mocked him. His so-called friends stopped answering his calls. He wasn't just the man who slept with his brother's wife. He was the man who destroyed a family.
the man who hid behind lies until they rotted. Clara tried to shield him, but even she couldn't stand the weight of their shared disgrace. The two of them became pariahs, huddled together in the ruins of what they thought was love. And Emma, that was the hardest part. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try to explain. I wanted to hate her, but every night I still saw her as the little girl who once reached for my hand, who once called me Daddy with joy in her voice. But the truth couldn't be erased. She wasn't mine. Not by blood, not by choice. Clara had stolen that from me long before I ever knew, and Emma had chosen to believe the lie rather than the man who raised her. So I let her go. It was the most painful decision I ever made. But sometimes love isn't enough to keep someone close. Sometimes love is knowing when to stop bleeding for people who never cared if you lived or died. The house grew quieter. My evenings stretched long and hollow. But in that silence, I began to breathe again. I poured my rage into rebuilding myself. I changed the locks, sold the furniture that carried her scent, stripped the walls of every picture that mocked me with memories. And for the first time in years, I started living for me. But karma has its way of crawling back around. One afternoon, months later, I saw Clara at the grocery store. Her once polished face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. Mark wasn't with her. She walked slowly, pushing the cart like it weighed 100 pounds. I almost walked past, but then she spoke. "Please," she whispered, grabbing my arm. "Mark's gone. He left. He said he couldn't handle it anymore." I stared at her hand on my sleeve until she let go. "You chose him," I said. Her tears fell freely. "I made a mistake. I see that now. Please, I need you. We need you." "We?" I asked, my voice as cold as the freezer aisle around us. She swallowed hard. "Emma, she hates me. She blames me for everything. She doesn't talk to me anymore." The irony almost made me laugh. She had ripped Emma from me, only to lose her herself. That was the justice neither of us could control. I leaned closer, my voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. "You wanted freedom. You wanted passion. You wanted him. Now you can live with the ruins you built. Don't ever come crawling back to me again." Her face crumbled, but I walked away, not once looking back. And as for Emma, she reached out once, months after Clara's collapse. A single message. "I'm sorry, Dad. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time, my heart warring with itself. But then I thought of the hotel room, the screaming, the moment she looked at me and called me redundant. I never replied, because maybe that was my final act of revenge. Not screaming, not fighting, not dragging them down into the mud, but leaving them to choke on the silence they forced me into. They had destroyed me once. I wouldn't let them do it again. In the end, I chose peace, my peace. And I knew, deep in my bones, that they would never find theirs. It's been over a year since I walked out of that house and left everything behind. A year since the screams, the betrayal, the shattering of a family I thought was unbreakable. I live in a smaller place now, quiet, just me, 4 walls, and the sound of my own breathing at night. At first, it felt like exile. The silence pressed against me, heavy and suffocating, like the walls themselves knew my story and pitied me. But over time, the silence became a friend. It didn't judge me, didn't betray me. It held me, healed me, and taught me something I had forgotten: peace. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what became of them.
Clara, hollow and desperate, clinging to the ashes of choices she can't undo. Mark, the brother who burned his own blood for lust, now wandering through life with a ruined name. And Emma, the girl I raised, the girl who chose another man over me, now a stranger whose silence cuts deeper than any blade. I heard through whispers that Clara and Mark split months after I left. He couldn't take the pressure, the shame. He vanished, leaving her with nothing. Clara tried to rebuild, but the community doesn't forget. They look at her and see not just a woman, but a warning. What betrayal costs. Emma, she lives somewhere far now. College, maybe. Friends tell me she avoids her mother, barely speaks to her. I wish I could feel joy in that irony, but all I feel is emptiness. Because while Clara deserves her downfall, Emma was still the child I tucked into bed, the child I carried on my shoulders. Losing her wasn't justice, it was tragedy. And yet, here's the truth I've come to accept. Sometimes, you don't get to keep the people you love. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's survival. To keep breathing when they hoped you'd drown. To stand tall when they expected you to fall. That's my story. A father who gave everything, only to be called redundant by the child he loved most. A husband who stayed faithful, only to be betrayed in the cruelest way. A brother who lost his blood, not to death, but to deceit. And now, a man who walks alone, but not broken. Because I've learned something I need you to hear. Family is not defined by blood alone. It is defined by loyalty, by love, by truth. And if those things are missing, blood means nothing. To every father listening, every man who feels invisible in his own home, every husband who wonders if he matters, let my story be your warning. Do not let anyone convince you that you are redundant. You are not. You are the backbone, the silent force that holds the house together. And if they choose to forget that, let them. Their downfall will come. My revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was walking away and letting the truth eat them alive. And now, I leave you with this. Sometimes, the greatest act of strength is not holding on, but letting go. They lost me, and in losing me, they lost everything.